Hello everyone, thanks for checking out this video and taking a look at how cool Azure can be when you're building multiplayer games. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the steps of taking the proof of concept that we built and basically getting it up and running in your own Azure instance. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a website to host our game logic. So what we're going to do is we're going to have two websites, two Azure websites, one to host the game and one to host the server. So the first one, our actual game is going to host all of our game logic. So let's go ahead and we're going to open up our Azure website. So I'm going to go ahead to my Azure portal here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new website. So here I've got all items selected. I'm going to scroll down to New. I'm going to select Compute, Website, and Quick Create. And I'm going to call this one Azure Game POC. And if you get the check mark, that means it's available. So my game is going to be, when I point to my game, I'm going to point to Azure Game POC.Azure websites.net. So I go ahead and click Create. And after a couple of seconds here, it's going to go ahead and actually create our website. Now, what I want to do is I want to select that newly created site, and I'm going to go up to my dashboard. Now, there's a couple of things we need to do in order to be able to push our website, our game and our code up to our website. The first thing that we need to do is change our deployment credentials. So if you notice over here on the right hand side under Quick Glance, I have a few options, and down towards the bottom there I have Reset Deployment Credentials. So go ahead and click that, and it's going to come up and it's going to ask me for my username. I'm just going to leave it as the default one that I have, which is Scruffy Fern, and I'm just going to put in a new password. Go ahead and click OK, and that's just going to set up our deployment credentials so that way we have a username and password when we go to upload our files. Simple enough. Just going to go ahead and click OK so that all these disappear. Now the last thing that we need to do before we move on is we need to copy our FTP hostname. And this is so that when we connect to our site to upload our files, we know where to point. So we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to select that and I'm going to copy it so that I can use it later on. Now one thing that I want to point out before we actually move over to Visual Studio is that our deployment FTP user, if you look down here, it has the name of the site slash the username. And that's important. In order to log into the proper site, we must make sure that we're prefixing our username with the site. So in my case, it's Azure Game POC slash Scruffy Fern. And you'll see why that's important in just a minute. So we'll go ahead and we're going to jump back over into Visual Studio now. And we're going to go ahead and create our solution. So the first thing I want to do is go up to File, and I'm going to select New, and I'm going to select Project. So this is going to let me create a brand new project. And what I want to do is I'm going to go up to, I'm just going to find my blank solution, and you can find this installed or wherever. But what I want to do is I want to click Browse beside my location so I can set where I want to save everything. Now there's something that I found out a little while ago is when you're working with Node.js in Azure, if your file names or directory names are too long, too many characters, you'll get some errors. So what I'm doing is I'm saving everything that I'm working on to my C drive or my root drive so that I don't have that issue. So here in my C drive, my root of my C drive, I'm going to create a new folder. And in my case, I'm just going to call this Demo POC. And I'm going to select that folder. And this is going to let me build my solution into that folder. I'm going to call my solution here where it says name. I'm just going to call this Azure POC. Go ahead and click OK. Now I have a completely blank solution with nothing in it. So now what we want to do is we want to start with our game side of things. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go over to my solution, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go to Add Existing Website. Now it's going to pop up here, and you'll notice right off the bat it's already got my stubbed in stuff. This is because I used it before, but yours might be blank. This is where we're going to paste in that location that we copied from the website. So here I just pasted it in. Now you'll notice down here at the bottom where I have to put my username, and this is where I mentioned the fact that you have to remember what website you want to connect to. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to type Azure game POC / scruffyfern, and then I'm going to punch in my password. And that's going to let me collect, or oh, so it looks like I punched in the wrong password there. This is going to let me actually connect to my website. So once it connects, you'll see here, it pulls it up, and here's my actual website. And everything's in here. Now, the folder that we're concerned about and that we care about mostly is the www root folder. So if I open that up, right now it's just got one folder in it, and that's hosting start.html, which is a stubbed-in file that gets put in there when we create a Azure website. So we're just going to delete that because we don't want to use that one right now. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to add the files that you received when you downloaded the source code. So what I want to do is I'm going to right-click on www root. I'm going to go to add, and I'm going to go to existing item. Now I have to scroll through and find out where I put that downloaded code. For me, it's actually right here on my website. Oh, right here on my desktop. So what I'm looking for here is the game folder. So because right now we're working on our game client. So if I go into my game client and I scroll in, I'll notice that I have an index HTML file. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select that one, and I'm going to select add. And that added in my HTML index file from my code. Now we want to add a couple more files. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our www root. We're going to go to add. We're going to go to existing item. And this time we're going to go into our JS folder. And we're going to select all three. If I hit the top one and then hit shift and hit the bottom one, it'll select all three of them. And then I'm going to go add. So that's going to add in all of the code that we need for our client. So there we go. So now that's everything that we need on our client side. So we've got our index and all of our JavaScript code. If you're looking for more information about what the JavaScript code does and kind of want to walk through, you can check out my YouTube site, YouTube/scruffyferns with an S at the end of scruffyfern, and you'll see a couple of videos there where we actually walk through the entire build process of this proof of concept. But this will get you up and running with the client side of things. So now the next thing that we want to do is we want to set up our server. So what we're going to do here is we're going to actually add a new solution, or sorry, a new project to our solution. But before we do that, we need to install Node.js tools for Visual Studio. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our website here, and we're going to go to Node.js tools.codeplex.com, and we're going to actually download our Node.js tools for Visual Studio. So you go right over here on the right hand side, click this big download button, it'll download it, and then once you installed it, what will happen is it's going to it's going to install a bunch of templates for using Node.js websites and applications inside of Visual Studio. Basically, this add-on is going to turn Visual Studio into a really powerful IDE for Node.js. So once you've got that installed, you can come back to your Visual Studio, and we're going to go up to File, and we're going to go to New, we'll go over to our solution here. This will be a little bit easier. We'll scroll over to our solution here. We're going to right-click, and then we're going to go to Add, and then we're going to go to New Project. Now you'll notice if your drop-down's closed like this, if you go into JavaScript, you'll notice that you now have Node.js in there. And this is all those templates that get installed when we install those tools. Now the one that we're interested in is the blank Azure Node.js web application. So we're going to go ahead and select that. And down here at the bottom, we're going to change the name to server, just so we can identify which one's which. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And that's actually built a empty well, not completely empty. It's actually a hello world version of Node.js server. So if we were to run this, it would actually open up an HTTP server that we could connect to, and we'd see the words hello world, which is really cool, but not what we need it for today. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to right click on server.js and I'm going to click delete. So now we have a blank Node.js project. There's a couple of things we need to do first. We need to install some packages for the libraries that we need to get everything up and running. Now this is actually really simple to do inside of the IDE. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to select the NPM over here underneath the server, and NPM stands for Node Package Manager. We're going to right click on it and we're going to go to install new NPM packages. And this is going to allow us to install all the packages that we need to use for Node.js. And we're interested in a couple of them. The first one we're interested in is Socket.io. And this is going to allow us to use our WebSockets for our game. So once we have that one selected, we're going to go ahead and click down here at the bottom, Install Package. And after a few minutes, it'll actually install the package. Well, not a few minutes, a few seconds, depending on your connection. Okay, so once we have Socket.io installed, the next one that we want to install is Express. So we're going to type Express in here at the top. And right there, the first one is Express 4.10.4. That's the one we're going to select. And we're going to go ahead and hit Install Package. And again, after a few moments, it'll go ahead and install that. So now, if we close this, and we look over here under our NPM folder, you'll notice we have Express and Socket.io. And those are our two packages that have been installed. Okay, so now that we have our packages installed, we can go ahead and pull in our code for our server. So we're going to right click on server, we're going to go to add existing item, we're going to go back to our website here, or sorry, where we downloaded the code. In my case it was right on my desktop, and I'm going to go into the server folder this time, and you'll notice there's two files there, there's player and server. Select both of them and add them to your project. Okay, so that's all the code, and again, if you want to know how the code works, check out the other videos that I mentioned. They'll be up on my YouTube page. So okay, now we have everything ready and we want to go ahead and push it up to our website. So what we're going to do here is we're going to right click on server, we're going to go down to publish, and it's going to pop up this little dialog and it's going to ask us where we want to publish this server. So we're going to select Windows Azure Websites. Now it's going to pop up and it'll ask you to sign in if you already haven't. Now it'll have a drop down with our existing websites, and yeah, we already have our game site created, but we haven't created one for the server. So instead of selecting an existing website, we're going to select new. In here, it's going to ask for a website. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new site for our server. So in my case, I'm going to call it Azure Server POC. Region, I'm just going to select East US. It's because it's probably the closest one to me right now. So I go ahead and click Create. And this is actually going to go, and it's going to do the same steps that we did on the portal, only it's doing it right directly inside of the inside of Visual Studio, which is a huge bonus for us. A little less keystrokes. Okay, so once it's created it downloads the publish settings, and we can actually just go ahead and click Publish. And this is actually going to go ahead and package up our entire server and push it up to the website. So after a few moments, it'll go ahead and it'll deploy. The first deploy always seems to take a little bit longer because it has a lot more to upload. But what it's going to try to do is it's going to try to open up the website. If you see this, don't be alarmed. This is normal. It's because there's really no HTTP code there. It's just a server. So go ahead and close that. Now there's a couple of things we need to do in order to tie everything together and make sure that everything's talking to one another properly. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our game, which is in our website, the solution of the project above our server, and we're going to select our index.html file, double click it to open it. And if you scroll down here, you'll notice that I have this line of code right here that says it's looking to connect to a server, right, to download our socket.io files. Right now it's set up to point at a different server. We want to point it at ours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase this first part here, and I'm going to punch in the website that I've created for my server. So in my case, it was Azure server POC. And then, of course, .azure websites, .net, port 80, and then we just kind of leave all the rest. So we can kind of go ahead, and we're just going to save that. Perfect. Now there's one more change that we need to make. If we go back, if we click on our game.js file here, double-click it and open it, if you scroll down a little ways, you'll see this line that says var socket equals IO connect. Again, this is pointing to a different site, so we want to make sure we point it to ours. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the first little bit here to point to our server. So in my case, Azure server POC. And we can go ahead and click save. Alright, so now we have our client pointing towards our server. There's one last thing we need to do in order to make everything connect properly. What we're going to do is we're going to go back to our Azure websites, to our portal, so Azure website portal here. I'm going to go back to my websites, and you'll notice down here at the bottom I have the newly created Azure Server POC. I'm going to click on that one, and up here at the top I'm going to scroll over until I hit configure. Once I've got configure selected, I'm going to scroll down until I see the line that says WebSockets, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to go down to the bottom, I'm going to click save, which will actually save and update the configuration file. And once that says OK, I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to restart the server. And this is just a good method just to make sure that everything's fresh and up to date. Okay, now we have one last thing to do before we can push it all up and see if it works. Let's go back to our Visual Studio, and we're going to go down to our server project, and right down near the bottom, right before the second to last file, is web.config. We're going to select web.config, and if we scroll down to where it says system.webserver, you can see right here highlighted, right underneath it where it says static /static content, we're going to put a new line of code. We're going to put bracket web capital S socket, sockets, enabled equals false, and then we're going to close that out with a bracket. It might seem counterintuitive to do it this way, but it's what we're doing is we're basically telling Azure to use Node.js version of WebSockets and not its own. So once we got that saved, go ahead and click S or Control Save or Control S for saving, or however else you'd like to save it. And what we're going to do is we're going to push everything up to our websites now. So we're going to right click on server, go to publish, and we're going to scroll down to the bottom here where it says publish and click publish. That's going to push our server up to our server website. And we'll just give it a quick minute here to deploy. And again, this is normal if you see this. The next thing that we want to do is we want to push up our game website. So we're going to go to our website up here, our website project. We're going to right click on it and we're going to go publish website. Again, it's going to bring up a dialog for where we want to publish it to. We're going to select Windows Azure Websites. Again, it'll sign us in if we haven't already. And in this time, we're actually going to select one of our existing websites. So we select our dropdown, and in my case, I'm going to select Azure Game POC, which is the site that I created originally to host all my game content. I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to click Publish. And this is going to push everything up to the server for me. Okay, so once the page loads, you'll notice you'll have a sprite up here on the screen, and this is our character, and I can kind of move him around with my arrow keys. Right? Now if I go ahead and I open up another tab, and I'm going to open up the same website that I'm looking at there, and you'll notice now I have two sprites on the screen, and if I move one, it moves on the other screen. Kind of hard to see. I'll open up both of them at the same time, see maybe we can get a better view of things going on here. Alright, so here we go. So I move there, and as you can see, I'm moving on the other screen. So pretty simple. Again, this is a proof of concept. It's something that kind of lets you know how things are done, and you can kind of build out from this. Thank you very much, and thanks for checking out the video.